The way I like to start off this series is I like to give you a little history of yoga. So, what yoga looks like today here in this yoga studio with these mats and how we're dressed and the poses that we do, that's not how yoga started. So, I really like to give you an idea of how yoga started, what the purpose of yoga was, and hopefully that gives you a little insight into what you're trying to get out of your practice. So, yoga started about 5,000 years ago. We don't know the exact date because it was an oral tradition, like a lot of the traditions of those ages. It was an oral tradition that was passed down from generation to generation until it was finally written down. So we use that nice round number of 5,000 years. So we think it started somewhere around 5,000 years ago in India. And the practice, like I said, it looked really, really different than it looks like today. So yoga started off as a meditation practice. So it had no physical poses. It didn't have anything that resembles our current Western yoga practice. So it was only for the kings and queens and the royalty of India. So 5,000 years ago, India was a bunch of little fiefdoms. So it was a bunch of little areas that were governed or owned by a king. And so you had multiple kings all around India. And the yoga teachers would go around from one fiefdom and one kingdom to another and teach yoga to the royals. And as I said, the practice was a seated meditation practice. So they would just come to sitting and they would close their eyes and they would meditate with their yoga teacher. And that's all it was. So when you're royalty, I'm assuming, because I'm not royalty, when you're royalty, I'm assuming you don't have a ton of worries. You have things made for you, you have everything taken care of, you've got a lot of money, life is good. Meditating thus probably comes a lot easier to that group than it does to us. So when the yoga teachers, the yogis of that day, decided that it would be a good practice to bring out into the rest of the population, they started going out and sharing yoga with the everyman. And what they realized really, really quickly was that they could not sit and just fall into meditation, that was not available to the everyday person. That is when the physical practice came around. So the reason for the physical practice is that we fatigue the physical body in order to fatigue the mind in order to meditate. So it's a means to an end. So the poses are not the reason that we're in yoga class. They hold a really important piece of the puzzle. And as we sit more and more, they really help our physical bodies, but they are a means to an end. So fatiguing the physical body through the poses, which in turn gets the mind to quiet down and you don't have that mental to-do list going through your mind, then you can get to meditation. And any of you who have done yoga and ever gotten to that point, you know what I'm talking about. And it may be fleeting. It may be a second or a millisecond, or it may be, 5 breaths that you had that complete connection with your body, your breath, and that space that you created. But that is what yogis are always searching for, is that connection, that meditative moment. So that's why the physical practice came around. And pranayama, breath work, has always been a part of the practice. So meditation and pranayama was how the practice started off, and then we added on the physical poses. And then also a little caveat, a little asterisk to that. The physical poses they started off when yoga really started to expand out. And I'm talking about in the 20th century when it became a lot more mainstream, even in India. These physical poses that we do were really geared more towards teenage boys. That's who was doing yoga in these yoga schools and stuff. So imagine what teenage boys' bodies look like versus adult bodies or female bodies. So, you can see the practice really needs to be adapted for each gender, each age group, each lifestyle. So just know that some of the poses that you see, they're not going to be available to you because you just don't have the physical makeup of a teenage boy. So remember that as well. I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, that not all poses are available to all bodies. Okay. So I talk a lot about breath. I talk a lot about meditation. Why is this so important? One of the keys to meditation and breath work, one of the things that it opens up for you is your parasympathetic nervous system. So I'm going to switch over from the history of yoga and I'm going to move into the science of yoga. So why do yoga? Yeah, we need to meditate, but what does meditating do for us? And what does breath work do for us? It allows you to enter into the parasympathetic nervous system. So I'm going to take a step back. So in our nervous system, we only have two states. We have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the state where we're balanced. Then we have the sympathetic nervous system, and you guys have heard of this. It's called the fight or flight response. So with the fight or flight response, we are in this mode where all these hormones are coursing through our body, but they're only supposed to happen for a very short period of time. So I'm going to back up a little bit. And I'm going to go through evolution, not from the very beginning. I wouldn't bore you guys with that. But I'm going to start off at caveman time. So cavemen is who we're evolved from. So we evolved from cavemen. We don't look anything like what a caveman's life looked like. So our lives look extremely different than what their lives look like. But our nervous systems are exactly the same. They haven't evolved. So our nervous systems are the same nervous systems that we had back in caveman time. So imagine their lives. They're sitting in a cave, and I'm making this up. I don't know what it looked like when you were sitting in a cave. I could only imagine that you're cold and damp. That's what I'm thinking of. But you're sitting in a cave, you're sitting there and you're like looking through each other's hair and you're like, grunting at each other. I don't know what you're doing cave drawings and stuff like that. But most of the time, you are in this social environment with your family and with your tribe. And we know that that is amazing. And that's what we do when we join in a yoga class. We are in a social environment. We're sharing with each other. We know that that's really important to put us into the parasympathetic nervous system. And I think 2020 showed us that very starkly, how important it is to be with our groups. And being isolated really throws you into the sympathetic nervous system. So being together is really calming to the nervous system. Also, you're sitting around and your time is your own. You're foraging, you're hunter-gatherers. So you're foraging and you're finding your food. So now I'm going to take us into a hunt. So we're cavemen. We're going on a hunt. We're going to get some meat. So we're going on our hunt and everything's fine, except now you've got your prey turning around and it's charging at you. Now you pull into the the sympathetic nervous system. So you're sitting in your cave, you're with your family, you're doing your thing, you're in the parasympathetic, where all those good hormones are being coursing through your body. You're on your hunt, you're starting to be charged by, I don't know, whatever, a lion, I don't know, whatever you're hunting, a rhino, I don't know. And it's coming towards you. You immediately kick into the sympathetic nervous system. You guys are going to be shocked when you hear what happens physiologically to your body in the sympathetic nervous system. So when you're in the sympathetic nervous system, your body actually, so your brain says, whoa, okay, we're going to get eaten if we don't do something. So you have two options when you are seeing something charge at you. You are either going to turn and run, or you're going to stand and you're going to fight. Those are your only two options, fight or flight, right? So if you, either one of those options really makes it so that you need to use your extremities. You need to use your legs to run, or you need to stand your ground and fight. And so you need your arms. So what happens is when your body finds out, and it only finds out through your breath, that you are in the sympathetic nervous system. So what happens usually is when you're like, you know, imagine when you're about to be cut off or possibly hit another car or something, you immediately start to breathe through your mouth. Your breath gets very shallow and fast. And so that immediately, the minute you start breathing through your mouth and your breath gets shallow and fast, that is an immediate trigger to your brain to say, oh, we're going into the sympathetic nervous system now. So it immediately shifts over and it starts releasing all of these hormones, cortisol and all of these adrenaline, all of these hormones that you need to take care of yourself in this fight or flight situation. So remember, we're cavemen. Cavemen were not driving cars and about to rear end someone. They knew that they were going to get eaten, or another cave family from another cave was going to come try to take over, and they needed to protect their environment. So we still have exactly the same reactions. So we start breathing through our mouth, we breathe shallow, our eyes get dilated, we get tunnel vision. So really you have no peripheral vision left because you're just looking at whatever is in front of you. And that's what happens hormonally. The other thing that happens physiologically is that your blood gets shunted out of your torso and moves into your extremities. So your torso is getting minimal blood flow. It's only getting enough blood to keep your organs alive, but that's it. So all of the processes that happen in your organs are on like just life support. You're not digesting your food because you don't need to do that if you're going to get eaten. You're not having any of the detoxification happening. Your liver's not working properly. Your kidneys are not functioning properly. They are on life support. So that's what happens when you go into the fight or flight mode, into the sympathetic nervous system. So all these hormones are coursing through you. Your organs are getting minimal blood. You are in this completely focused state now. And you're only supposed to sustain that for a very short period, because you're either going to get eaten or you're going to like beat that rhino off. So it's supposed to be for a very short spurt of time. Research and science shows we are supposed to be in the parasympathetic nervous system about 90% of our day, and in the sympathetic nervous system about 10% of our day. We have actually flip-flopped that. So in today's world, they are finding that we are sitting in the sympathetic nervous system about 80 to 90% of our day, and we are in the parasympathetic nervous system for about 10% of the day. So what did I tell you physiologically is happening with those hormones and with the blood flow? That is not sustainable. So no wonder we have so much disease. We have so much pain. We have so many sleep disorders. We have so many eating disorders. All of that stems from the fact that our bodies are not working the way that they're supposed to. So once you know that, I think that's a big light bulb that starts going off. Not all is lost though. So I tell you this doomsday scenario of us being in the sympathetic nervous system for the majority of our day, and we're not supposed to be. And that takes a toll on your organs and your muscles and everything as well. There is a really easy fix to get out of the sympathetic nervous system and back into the parasympathetic. And I told you what it was: breathing. So the only way our brain knows that we're in the sympathetic nervous system is because we breathe through our mouth and we breathe shallow. That's the only way it knows. So if we breathe through our nose and we breathe into our diaphragm, the brain will say, oh, we're in the parasympathetic nervous system now. And it'll start releasing all those good hormones, all of the healing, balancing, digesting, sleeping hormones. So that's all we need to do is shift the way we breathe. And that is what yoga does for you. That is why it's so important to be here. Okay. So that's why yoga teachers are always saying breathe, but it's not breathe. That's not breathing. That is sympathetic nervous system. It is that's yogic breath. And that you can, I always say, and I'm going to send to each of you, I will send you this talk that I did. I created a video of this and I'll send it to you. It's on my YouTube channel, but it talks about how you can, anytime you're feeling stressed, what do people always say? Oh, just take a deep breath. Why do they say that? Because it shifts you out of that sympathetic nervous system. Stress is going to be putting out cortisol and all of this stuff. So take that deep breath. Take 5 deep breaths and see what that does. So that's why the breathing is so important. That's why no matter what you learn in yoga, the most important thing you will learn is how to breathe well. Okay? And the minute you do that, it will shift everything for you. Okay? Any questions, you guys? Any comments, any observations? Anyone who's had this experience of, I've gone through this and I took some deep breaths and it totally shifted everything, if you want to share. Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's amazing. It is an instant switch, a flip of the switch in your brain, instantly. Yeah, perfect. So that is breath. So I've gone through history. You guys, I'm a little rusty on this. I usually do this like every 6 weeks. I haven't done this since like March of last year. So we did the history, we did the breath, we did the parasympathetic nervous system. And now what I want us to do is I want us to learn Ujjayi breath. So Ujjayi is victorious breath in yoga. And it is it has multiple properties to it. It does a whole bunch of different stuff. one of the main things that it does is it allows you to elongate the inhale and the exhale so you can make it deeper and fuller and create more length in it, because we're such shallow, short breathers. It takes a while to build up that lung capacity again. So don't expect yourself to be there immediately. But so Ujjayi, by the way that we constrict the throat, and I'm going to teach you how to do this, don't worry. The way that we constrict the throat, it allows you to elongate the breath and get into that deeper, fuller breath. And then the other component of it is that it is a heating breath. So in Ayurveda, which is the sister science to yoga, and yoga, of course, believes all of this as well, because they're intermeshed. You can't separate out Ayurveda and yoga. So there is heating elements to some types of breathing and foods and things like that. So some breath patterns are heating, some are cooling. So it's what it does to you internally. So you're not going to feel, you will actually, some of them, you will feel heat building in your system. So, but a lot of times you will just feel nothing other than you're breathing well, but it will be creating a heating effect in your body or a cooling effect in your body. So Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, they really are big proponents of this, heating elements in food, breath patterns, times of the day, things like that. So Ujjayi, which translates to victorious breath, is what we usually do in a yoga practice. I do a 3-part breath in yoga, but I'm going to just teach you Ujjayi pranayama. So pranayama, if you break it out, prana is the core part of the word, and prana in Sanskrit translates to life force or life energy. So pranayama is the life force that's keeping you alive, your breath, yeah? But it's more than that. So the way that we do Ujjayi, I'm going to show it to you, is it's audible and vibrational. You can kind of hear it. It sounds like the waves in the ocean, or you hear teachers talk about this all the time. Waves in the ocean or the wind in the trees. So it sounds like this. And I'm going to make it louder than I normally would so that you guys can hear it in the seats in the back. So kind of sounds like Darth Vader. Yeah. Yeah. Darth Vader breath. But what I'm doing is I am constricting my throat so that when I inhale and exhale, the breath is hitting against my trachea, on the sides of my trachea. And that is what's creating that vibration and audible sound. So it's the vibration against the trachea, which is narrowed, that is creating that sound. And it's also heating the breath as it moves up and down, because you have tightened it and it's got a smaller air passage to move through. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay, so we are going to try it, but the first thing that I want you to do is we're going to try it without the yoga breath. So the easiest way to feel what Ujjayi feels like is like, you know, when you fog up a mirror, that's Ujjayi, but you're doing it through your mouth. We're going to do it through our nose. So put your hand in front of your face, and then I want you to open your mouth and fog up the imaginary mirror. Do it again. 2 more times, you guys. So do you feel how the throat constricts to make that noise? Yeah, do you feel that? And you can keep trying it. If you're not feeling it, keep trying it. So that little constriction is that vibrational effect that we're going for with Ujjayi. So I want you to keep your hand there. I want you to do one more with the mouth open, fogging up the mirror. Now, close your mouth and pretend you're fogging up the mirror, but it's coming out your nose. Do that 3 more times. Do you guys feel that? So that is Ujjayi. So the breath is that constriction, and the vibration is what creates that noise, that Darth Vader sound. And you can I'm hoping you can kind of feel that heat that starts building as it goes through this narrowed passageway. Yeah? So that is Ujjayi Pranayama. And then I don't have enough time. I can start with mountain pose, but I don't feel like I have enough time. So you know what? Let's do a mini version of mountain pose. Okay? So let's stand up. So we're going to start off with a mini version of mountain pose, and this is where we'll start off class. Next week is with mountain pose again, but I'm going to be pulling a prop in to mountain pose next week. So today we're going to do it without any props. So I want you to set up your feet so that they're hips distance. And if that doesn't feel stable, actually, you know what? Shake out your legs, shake them out. And just put your feet however you would normally stand. So don't look at them, don't think about it, just let them land. I know, that's a hard one. So now look down at your feet. See how they are. So for most people, and you know, this is a generalization, so it's not going to be true for everyone, but for most people, there's a little bit of either a turn out of the toes or a turn in of the toes. It's pretty rare that the feet are straight forward. Yeah, they might be hips distance, they might be a little narrower, they might be a little wider. But what I really want us to be aware of is, what are your toes doing in everyday placement? So now wherever your feet are, I want you to turn your toes so that they come to the outer edges of your feet being parallel to the long edges of your mat. So that probably means turning the toes in slightly, unless you're already kind of pigeon-toed, and then you would want to turn them out slightly. So feel that. So just look straight ahead, feel that. Feel how that feels. How does it feel on your feet, the pressure on your feet? How does it feel on your knees and on your hips, your low back? Because, you know, we're a closed chain. Everything goes up and down the chain. So your feet are not separate from the rest of your body. So what's happening in your feet is going to affect the rest of your body. Okay, shake out the feet again. Shake them out and come back to just placing them down and your normal stance. Feel that. Feel how it feels on your feet, your ankles, your knees, your hips, your back. And just feel what the foundation feels like. Good. Perfect. Shake them out again. And now put them down and have the toes facing forward so the outer edges of the feet are parallel to the long edges of your mat. Good. Perfect. Good job, you guys. So now from here, I want you to press into the big toe mound and the pinky toe mound. So those are the mounds behind your toes. So it's what your toes kind of grow out of. So press into the big toe mound, the pinky toe mound, and then press into the center of the heel. So feel that. Can you feel even engagement in the big toe mound, the pinky toe mound, and the center of the heel? Yeah? Yeah. Good. So now shake out your feet. and put them down in your regular stance. So don't even think about it, just put them down. Now, press into the big toe mound, pinky toe mound, center of the heel. Does it feel even? Or is it more on the outside edge or the inside edge? So just feel what that feels like. So this is your normal stance. And some of you may be like, yeah, this feels the same as it did when I was in my feet with that parallel spacing. But for most of us, I would say 90% of us probably, there's more pressure either on the inside edge or the outside edge. We're not able to evenly press through it. So now come back to that mountain pose foot placement, where the outer edges are parallel to the edges of your mat. And if you can't press into the big toe mound, pinky toe mound, and center of the heel evenly, then play with the placement of your feet. You may have to push the toes out a little more, push them in a little more. Maybe the heels need to go out a little more. Figure it out. But I want you to really be able to feel those 3 points on your feet. Do you guys feel those? That is your mountain feet. With alignment-based yoga, everything starts with whatever is touching the ground. So in mountain pose, which is the template for all poses, the feet are your foundation. So if the feet are not set up where they feel grounded and secure and stable, everything above it is going to be like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's not going to be grounded, secure, and stable. So you have to get the foundation strong and stable. And so that's what this does for us. So I'm going to stop it here. I have 2 homework items for you. Little did you know you were going to get homework. I wanted to be a professor, so I never got to that. So I'm a yoga teacher and I give you homework. So I want you to observe your breathing throughout the week. Observe how you're breathing. Are you breathing through your nose? Are you breathing through your mouth? Are you breathing down into your diaphragm, which is right at the base of your lungs? Or is your breath getting stopped right here? They say only 30% of us breathe fully into our diaphragm. I think it's probably even less than that. I think 30% is optimistic. So I want you to observe your breath. How are you breathing? And in turn, you're going to start thinking about, how is it making me feel? But I really just want you to focus on what's my breathing pattern like, my natural breathing pattern. And when you start observing your natural breathing pattern, I can guarantee you that you're going to start manipulating the breath. You're going to start making it fuller, deeper, smoother. Yeah. The next thing that I want you to observe is, how do your feet move throughout the day? So when you're walking, how are your feet hitting the ground? Are you walking like this? Are you walking like this? Are you walking like this? You know, what are you doing with your walk? How is it affecting your ankles, your knees, your hips, your back? So those are your homework. Namaste. Namaste. And we will talk about namaste as well. So there's also just a little pet peeve of mine that's going on right now. Everyone, the big hot topic is a cultural appropriation of yoga. So I say it's a bunch of hooey. So I just want you to know, as an Indian, that's where I am at with that. So yes, please say namaste. I'm good with that. So thank you, you guys.